What's up, guys? It's ChillNaga here. This is my first ever podcast, and it is going to be about Overwatch. Overwatch is a game that was released fairly recently by Blizzard, who haven't done anything in 17 years. It's gotten wild reception of all kinds, and it had the most ludicrous marketing ever, with random big statues showing up in certain cities. The animated shorts for it are pretty good as well. So, this is kind of a big deal. Overwatch is a big deal. I found myself getting interested in it only when I entered the open beta last week. The last week of the open beta, rather. And, I had tons of fun at the time. And then someone got me the game so I could play it right on release, and it wasn't nearly as fun a few hours in as it was in the beta. There are many reasons for this, and I plan to cover all of them. Overwatch, as far as I'm able to with my not extremely detailed eye, is going to get criticized to hell. Because God knows if you love something, you'll criticize it and hope that the people in charge can make it better. So, this is going to be a huge tear into Overwatch, because what it's turned into is actually not what was marketed, in my eyes. Let's start off with the good things first, because there's not a whole lot of them, and, positive notes and all that. So the characters, sorry about that, in Overwatch you get 21 characters to start with. There's been some observations from Ben Croshaw that it possibly is done this way to cater to every sort of audience possible. So the cool hip-ass cowboy with the guns, who appeals to a certain demographic, the ninjas, and the super Korean StarCraft player, and various examples like that. I'm not exactly sure. That's possibly a bit too cynical for me. I think that it's nice that all these nationalities are represented. Whether or not they're represented for funsies or for token reasons, I can't really say. But they are very distinct. You have different skin color, nationalities, backgrounds of all sorts, and you don't get the information in game, so very little of it comes through unless you put two characters together on a specific map on the same team, and then they'll quip something, but it's never properly explained what their business is. The story behind them is really good, so they're strong established characters, and they don't feel useless in their world. Everyone's done something, everyone's doing something, everyone's got a little story, some sort of purpose, a thread to follow that goes on, and it's actually quite good. I didn't expect much. I haven't seen... How do I put this? I haven't seen the Dragon's short for Hanzo and Genji till weeks after I started playing the game, and I was fucking floored. That is clearly professional level stuff. It is, it's impressive, and it's very high in detail. There was a lot of care and effort put into it. Sorry again. So, there's incredible variety in the character designs on and off the game. The design itself is very nice. The cartoony look, you can take it or leave it. I find it refreshing in a sea of dull, brown, grey realism shooters and set-piece nonsense. It's a refreshing change to have a more arcadey looking game that plays quicker and has color. It's a simple thing, color. Like you can go sit there and go, oh, but 3-year-olds like color, and then we grow up. Yeah, but what would you be rather looking at if you had a cubicle at work? Frickin' rainbow, frickin' wallpaper, or just the boring bland white? I get that white works, but eventually you'll get bored of it. Well, white's not that depressing compared to grey, but I digress. So, another thing I really do like is the lore, the interplay between the characters. Even though I haven't deep delved into all the materials yet, I can tell that there's something going on that's way bigger than what the gameplay is about. The whole Omnic crisis with the robots going mad, some of them coexisting with each other and some of them not. It's interesting, and I think it's very topical in a way, because now we're on the cusp of developing AI that may or may not become, quote-unquote self-aware. This is one of those things that will definitely lead to issues in the coming years and possibly generations. as we, Terminator might happen. We might have a Skynet situation on our hands. We might develop actual physical-bodied AI that we can actually live amongst. Like, if we program them right, if there's not a glitch, if some angry hacker doesn't screw that up for the rest of us, it makes my mind go in that direction, but I'm a sci-fi, science, and sort of IT-oriented person anyway, so bit of a bias there. The lore is good, the lore is strong, and it's a shame that there's not sort of a compilation somewhere. But I'm sure, someone's going to make a wiki at some point if it doesn't already exist. Owing to the fact that many characters of many nationalities are represented, many parts of the world are represented. Common maps include Dorado, set in Mexico, Gibraltar. I'm rubbish like that. That's set wherever that's set. I refuse to say it again. And you have the obvious examples like an American highway or Hollywood, set where they are. And, it's nice. It's all styled to be futuristic. So there's not really, that feeling of you are actually in this area, but they say it's in this area. The only example is there's a character called Zenyatta, who is a robotic sort of monk. His thing is his map is Nepal, so that's Nepal. Just snow and temples and Buddhism, and it's all peaceful and good, and it's I don't know, I like thematics. If it fits, if it makes sense, then it's pretty good. I'm all for that. It's nice to have, maps that actually fit into what you're doing, as opposed to now you're on this bit of land, this square, badly walled off piece of land. In terms of the game, the character diversity itself is another point I'm a fan of, because there's just so many options for you. If you're a twitchy guy, you want to play Tracer, you want to zip past the enemy's defenses and poke them from the back, that distract them from your actual team, the other 5 members. Your main job as a Tracer is to go and hunt down squishies like the healer, the sniper. If you can get close, then that's fine. And you have a strong burst, fairly, short-ranged bomb that you can put on someone to harass them even harder. Definitely an instant kill unless it's one of the few tanks. Or you can go, I like Call of Duty. I'm going to play Soldier 76. He's straightforward. He's got a gun. Left click makes things die. Right click's a rocket. He can heal a little bit in an AoE, and he's not special. And his mobility skill is a hold shift to dash. So I think he's the ease cod people into this game kind of class. More nuance is required for some classes like, well, I say class, but characters like Pharah, because there are no classes in this game. Pharah's interesting. Pharah's entire gimmick is I prefer to go up instead of forward. So she is a very floaty character who's got an on-demand, rechargeable high jump and a float that works off a separate fuel gauge. Naturally, that'll deplete and replete over time. And her thing is just, imagine if you rocket jumped in Quake and you stood up there for like 5 seconds, and that's her thing. That allows you to do some, go past the attacking enemy, do a really easy flank, harass them from behind, pick them off before they realize what's going on. She's fairly powerful, and she's more of an ambush-minded character, but she serves any role, so attack, defense, support. Although she doesn't have any direct support skills, she does have an EMP blast to throw people off cliffs with. And, what's one more class that's kind of unique? I suppose, I suppose May's pretty unique. She's absolutely no fun to play against, but tons of fun to play as, because her left mouse spam is just you slow down and then you freeze, and then I will right mouse you to death because game balance. So she's Chinese, she's small, she's got an environmental robot, and her entire thing is freezing. So she can freeze herself to regenerate about 80% of her health and become invincible during that time. And she can throw up an ice wall to block progress in a fairly large area, unless the ice walls are destroyed, but they have way too much health, so nobody's going to do that. She's fun because she can deny pushes, she can stall the enemy, and her ultimate attack has a fairly large AoE in which everything freezes after a second or two, rendering them completely vulnerable to whatever for good 3 or 4 seconds. Moving on, I do like that it is not class-based. In strictly, you do not have, the assault, you do not have the medic, you do not have the whatever. Everyone's got various skills and abilities that they're able to utilize, and it caters more to your playstyle than have a guy and put this gun on him and maybe he can do this other thing, and then you're boxed into this role. The only exception that comes to mind is possibly Mercy, whose entire function is to heal. One other function is to right mouse instead of left mouse, where the healing becomes a damage boosting beam instead. And although her weapon is semi-potent, she's not, supposed to use it, because if you ever have to fight as a medic, someone's not doing a good job. Whether that's you or the team is up for discussion, I'm sure. But the basic gist of it is that you have these enjoyable classes that are visually different. They all have unique personalities. They react to each other, the situation. They react to what little of the lore that does seep in. So, for instance, Torbjorn, the small dwarf, technically not a dwarf, but he's fairly old. He's a bitter old bastard. He's been through a few things. If you go to a certain map where there are posters of the Omnics, the robots, and the humans coexisting peacefully together, he is sort of in that old racist mindset where I don't know what sort of degree this is to be taken seriously to, but he will let out a semi-anguish, no, he can't believe this is happening, he does not want this. And, racism isn't a nice thing, but having a different character that is not the same generic nothing is refreshing, because you're not boxed in, and you're not doing the motions, so that's always good. Unfortunately, that was the rather small, short list of good things. I tried to elaborate on them. The bad things, there's a massive list. I'll try to mouth off on them really quick. There's a lot of issues. So let me preface this by saying that I want to like Overwatch. This is going to be in the end, just for people who skip to it. I want to like Overwatch, and I liked the first 5 or 6 hours of it, until huge glaring issues came to fault. Even without these huge issues, there are problems and niggles that often don't get addressed, or the rabid denial of the fan base is assuring developers that they don't need to, do anything with it. So, this isn't in any specific order, because I'm sort of a ramble brain, and I wrote them down as they came, but I've tried to elaborate on them so they're coherent enough. You understand, as possibly a non-player, what this is all about. So, what I've noticed is that the US forums have way more developer feedback than the European forums, despite Europe having twice the population of America and then some. It's a much larger potential customer base, but the Europeans are basically crapped on. So there might be a post once a week that doesn't actually discuss anything relevant, and if someone ever accidentally remembers to, they'll post a notice. Something like, oh, this patch did that, or, oh, we're going to do this now, but it's never organic. It's never in response to a person. It's always delayed. It's very slapshot, if I'm honest. It's never personal enough that you feel that they're addressing you, that your concerns are being taken into consideration. And a lot of it is whitewashing, if I'm completely honest. So I'll get to that later. For me, the massive core issues are the currently 20 tick rate servers. The 20 refers to the amount of times per second a server gets information from you, or the client gets information from the server. This is, simply put, this is synchronization. So it is lining up the information on your screen with what the server thinks or knows is going on. This is what leads you to die to things that you've clearly avoided. The most common example I have seen is a Genji coming upon a Roadhog whose special skill is that he'll hook you and stun you for half a second to get a free shot. Now that's very accurate semi-homing hook. It can go through things because the physics are wonky, but the main thing is it's got a fair bit of distance to it. Genji has an escape skill that's also an attack skill, which is a near instantaneous dash through any enemy. So it doesn't matter if there's 5 of them lined up, you can dash through them. I have had instances where as Genji I have seen a Roadhog, knew he was going to use the blade, the hook, and dash through him. In my camera, I've passed him. I was even turning around already to face him, and rather than dodge the hook, I was hooked and killed. Now, on the kill cam that shows the attacker's point of view, I was just standing there scratching my balls like nothing was going on. This is down to tick rate server desynchronization, and it is garbage. It renders the supposedly skill-based element of the game absolutely moot, because you do not currently have a fair, actual, even ground to measure that skill on. There are many other instances of this happening. Things like running across a doorway to get a med pack to heal. You know, you run really quick. You can even teleport through that little gap, but someone's going to shoot you. Like when you're in cover already, you're going to take damage from nothing, and that can often kill you. That's the chief concern with the game. Many people say that happens. And it doesn't help, I'm going to touch on this one later as well, but it doesn't help that the hitboxes are actually way bigger than they are. So when you're in for the head, you don't have to hit the head, you have to hit a square shape around the head, and that's a headshot. So someone poking through just enough for them to be able to score some shots on someone is going to absolutely get shot by someone aiming above their shoulder and not actually at what would be a character's flesh. It's quite ridiculous, and is mostly evident in Widowmaker and Hanzo, especially Hanzo, because his non-hit scan weapon means he has to have some sort of compensation for the travel time and arcing that it does. If it even arcs, actually, I'm not sure suddenly. Anyway, I've seen there's extreme instances of this, one of which upset me to no end was, this is going to be for players of the game will be able to know what I'm talking about. In Volskaya Industries B, I was a Junkrat and going to attack point B. I was in the middle and I thought, I'll go to the right. And Widowmaker had her ultimate up, which lets you see the entire enemy team for a few seconds. And I saw a Roadhog coming. I thought, yeah, he has to come through. I'll put a trap down and I'll retreat to bombard him with my grenades out of his hook range. Now, I was looking at the only possible way that Roadhog could have come from. I put my trap down in a way that he had to go over it, because not even jumping will bypass traps as far as I remember. And what I saw was, he didn't come into view, he didn't take pot shots, he teleported. He was behind a barrier, the corner. He was behind the corner, and all of a sudden he's there, and he's in the action of hooking me. I did not see him come up, I did not see him initiate the hook, I was stunned. Literally, from 1 millisecond to the other, I was stunned, getting pulled, and insta-killed. So that is a very nasty thing that's been going on lately. These extreme desyncs of multiple seconds. There's actually, if I could link a video here, there's a video of a guy. He plays some class, and he goes to pick up a medkit in front of a level edge, a death edge. You fall down, you die. He picks up the medkit, he turns around, he goes on his business, literally 3 to 5 seconds later he dies, and the kill cam is just showing him pressing forward, as if he never stopped pressing forward to collect the med pack, and just killing himself. So the server goes by what you did at that exact second, keeps replicating it, and then assuming that's what happened even though your client definitely is telling you you're not doing that. What he thought he was doing is he was flanking the enemy and doing a back attack, but no. So, this alone, in my eyes, makes the game pretty much unplayable, because you're punished for playing, and you're not only punished for playing, you're punished for playing well. People with bad connections, often self-inflicted lag, because this is a thing, obviously, will have a severe advantage as a result. It doesn't quite pan out with what I've just said, but if you go into a game and experience a lagger, not only will you immediately recognize them, but you'll know what I mean. They will be impossible to hit, and they'll have no trouble hitting you because you're lagging as well. Well, to them, you're the one standing still. It's freaking ridiculous. Another fairly big issue is that the game, you have 21 classes, everyone's good at something, everyone's good for a situation, and the game allegedly encourages you to swap heroes to counter the enemy team's composition. But when you do that, your built-up ultimate meter is lost unless you use it, and you go back down to 0%. So it could be that you're the wrong character for a situation where you want to get that ultimate off, because they're almost all really useful and powerful in their own ways. So if you die at 99% ultimate and it charges to full when you're dying, you're looking at either switching and losing that, or you're looking at a 30-second march back into the action with no ultimate, and possibly a game-changing or at least useful mechanic just stripped away from you. Now the alleged reason this is this way is because people would then, and I don't believe this for a second, people could switch to Mercy and heal people, because allegedly her healing rate is very good in building an ultimate, and it wouldn't take much time, and then they could die and they could switch to someone and fire off fire off that ultimate. I don't think that's a valid excuse at all. If you're going to encourage swapping players, then at least make it so not all of the ultimate meter is lost. I see the potential for abuse, but I don't think it's as prevalent. It would be that, prevalent as they say. Because, let's face it, if you farm up one ultimate, you pretty much farmed all of them up. They're roughly the same speed, except Widowmaker's, who's got nerfed. But, yeah, So, a combination of this Tick 20 server nonsense and insta-kill ultimates, and character abilities that can disable or kill you, such as McCree's stun or May's freezing, will mean that you will die without having a hope in hell of just, you can be minding your business, you could be trying to play well and tactically, you could be the healer, you could be the tank, you could be doing whatever you want, but someone, sometime is going to stun you, and that's going to get you killed by either an ultimate or bad team player on your side, they don't protect you. The gist of it is that out of your control, you can die from full health to nothing in literally a second, and McCree was especially egregious with this because he's got an ability where he can empty all six shots of his revolver, which used to do 70 damage per shot, and then do his shift command to roll and immediately refill the revolver and recharge his skill so he could do that again. So you were looking at upwards of 420 damage times 2. That literally kills everything in the game. Literally, just no hope of surviving that. They nerfed it since, so every shot of that skill does 40 or 45 damage now. The highest health a tank normally has, without Lucio's sound barrier boost, which I think starts at 500 and rapidly depletes at 80 a second, is I think Reinhardt with his 500, maybe Winston. So it's not a lot of health, and you can easily murder someone with that skill, is the point. Like, if you get even one headshot, and the rest of the salvo connects, you're done. You took out someone without any ounce of skill. And I find it hilarious when this is brought up and people go, oh, well, McCree, you just don't get in his range and it's fine. Well, how'd you not get in range? You tell me how you avoid going around corners. You tell me how someone who snuck through when you weren't respawning and drops down on you, how you can avoid that. Because you can't. The element of half a second surprise, he doesn't even need to stun you if you don't know he's there. He'll get you, and then he can use his stun to quash any resistance and either back away or kill your assistant. He was broken. Like, his main purpose with the stun is to get quick characters like Tracer, and he's suited for that, certainly, but he was doing a too good job of everything else. The main point, and it went on a goddamn tangent, is that it is out of your control how and when you die sometimes, but your reward for playing the game is often a 30-second wait and see, where you spend 5 seconds on the respawn screen and 20 seconds jaunting back to the action. That's not fun. That's flow-breaking and terrible. But on top of that, both attackers and defenders, although purely, so a defender who has not had their objective moved or the first point taken is going to face an extremely long walk back to the fight. Let me use the Temple of Anubis as an example. If you're a class that cannot take some mobility boosts and or shortcuts, like Farah can fly over some barriers and whatever, you are literally looking at 20 to 30 seconds just to get back and potentially be immediately killed by something. Because, you don't know where the other team is, you don't know what they're doing, and it's just disheartening to have to spend 30 seconds going back to try and do something, being immediately killed to cheap stuns or whatever, and then having to spend another 30 seconds going back to see your point being taken and you getting back attacked and spending another 10 seconds going to the other, more closer point, because you just lost that. I understand the balancing reasons for this, that you don't want the defending team to just keep coming out in droves and waves, because then you wouldn't not have an feasible attacking side, but that's got to be a better way to do this, guys. Like, it is simply punishing, it is simply unfun. And don't think for a second that Symmetra's teleporter is that useful. Her ultimate is a teleporter that can carry 6 people, so 1 full team respawn. It's easy to find and destroy. And while her teleporter is up, it counts as her ultimate being in use, so you cannot farm another teleporter for when that goes down, which again, for balance reasons, is completely understandable. But quote-unquote merely allowing 6 teleports is a joke. Like, her use outside of that is to put dinky little turrets down to die to 1 tick of damage to anything. And often I have seen Winston's little lightning gun, his base weapon, the thing he does, he can just hold it and go through a door with the turrets above the door, and he'll just get them. Like, he's not even aiming at them. He doesn't know they're there, but he'll get them. And then they do nothing. You have to have 2 or 3 together to kill someone anyway, unless you're backing the turrets up with Symmetra. And frankly, if I see a Symmetra in a doorway, I'm not going to go that way, because, come on. So her entire design feels a bit like the spy from the TF2. She's very obvious, she needs the support of her team, and outside of his gimmicks, he's completely useless. You know, except what the spy had the insta-kill ability to take, and you know, the mobility, quote-unquote, the stealth mobility to take out key targets. Symmetra can't really do shit. She's stuck firing her little orb cannon, hoping to hit something and build an ultimate, unless her turrets are doing it. And once her turrets are down, they do take 10 seconds each to recharge, so she feels a bit weak. This little rant, this section of the rant is about weak classes. That she needs a boost, and I'm not sure how she can get it, because she's in a very delicate position where, you know, adjusting skill levels and damage and whatever is possibly not going to help. But I do think that 10 seconds for one single turret to recharge, which immobilizes you for a second or two to put down anyway, is going to have to be looked at. Now, special rant point goes to Widowmaker. She is a French sniper who was, in the lore, forced to kill her own husband, hence the name. I want to get this word into popular culture. She is golden garbage. What that means is that there's no skill needed to scratch out an ultimate for your team, because anyone just occasionally having a body shot will eventually get her ultimate up, which is legitimate wall hack for the entire team for, you know, about 8 seconds or so, 8, 10, 12, I don't even. But this allows you and your entire team to see the enemy. If you're the attackers, you know where to attack, where there's a blind point. If you're the defenders, you know where they're coming from to get to your blind point so you can intercept. You can see the sneaky guy going around. It is incredibly valuable to be able to line up a headshot around the corner and just immediately kill something. Because, of course, Widowmaker herself makes use of this, never mind the other classes that can stun, immobilize, trap, blow up, displace, whatever. It is disaster for the team it's used against, and there are some very egregious mistakes being made. When her for instance, when her ultimate starts, there is a notification to your own team. I believe it's something like, "You can't hide from my sight." Which is fine, you know, her ultimate's up. You'll see that because it's wall hacks. The problem is the enemy team won't know about it. There's absolutely nothing announcing this to the enemy team that it's going on. And this is disastrous, because not only is this literally uncounterable, you cannot do anything to stop it once it's in motion, it is not announced, so you don't even know that it's going on. So you can't just hide behind a corner for 10 seconds, which, by the way, is devastating alone, and I'll compare. If that happened, if you knew that was going on and you were quote-unquote forced to hide to avoid being, you know, basically insta-killed by the entire enemy team for 10 seconds, then you know what? McCree's ultimate, Deadeye, does this, because his purpose is to paint enemies for a few seconds and then fire off a devastating shot that charges to do more damage the more he has enemies in his sights. So either people die to him or they know to take cover. His goal is to clear out big swaths of areas. So, hang on, because his doesn't last nearly as long, and sure, his is instant kill, but it does not give the entire ability to, the entire team the ability to destroy the entire enemy team. He's just a one-shot wonder, whereas Widowmaker, you know, it's a completely different problem. She has received a balance nerf, where her body shots no longer do 150 damage, instant killing one of the classes in the game, the squishiest medic. But her headshot damage went up, so I suppose that's good, but with the hitboxes, it isn't really. I think the main issue is that once it starts, the enemy team has no idea that it's going on. But the bigger issue besides that, because you can't really counter some ultimates sometimes, is that there's literally no counter to it. Once her wall hack is up, the only thing you can do is hope to God you're not shot. If you have a Widowmaker of your own and you fire it up, then, you know, good for you. And maybe you can go Widowmaker to counter their Widowmaker, but there's no other counter. People will say, I'll just pick Winston and jump across the map and harass her. Yeah, but you ignore the fact that you have to jump across an enemy team, because a smart sniper is super not going to be anywhere they can be reached easily. And even tanky people like Winston, a giant gorilla with 500 health and semi-crap deployable shields, will have severe issues getting to a sniper, because his mobility skill is a nice, obvious arc jump. It's actually really easy to headshot the poor guy in motion, or at least get a good charge body shot off, and the rest of the team will be gunning for him as well. Because he's obvious, and flying through the air will kind of do that. So, in my eyes, Widowmaker is one of the chief problems of the game, from a design standpoint rather than a mechanical standpoint, because she's simply broken. Like, even after her nerfs, she is just representative of an I win button. Whether for herself or for her team, she's way too powerful, and it's not good. Like, Soldier 76 has a legitimate aimbot for a few seconds as his ultimate, and that's good because you can hide behind a corner. You're not forced to be shot. You can put up defense skills, you can become invulnerable in various ways, you can use Genji's Reflect to negate some of it. You have options to counter that, but with Widowmaker's nonsense, you have no options. You're done. And that's incredibly bad. This is a small issue, but I've noticed that people tend to compare Overwatch to TF2 because it's a colorful casual shooter. Considering how TF2 ended up, I'm not exactly sure that's a good thing. Because remember how TF2 started? Valve were so proud of the game. Oh, it's our artistic vision, everything looks good and unique, and the art style's unique, and the classes have unique silhouettes so you can recognize them, and we're just so proud of all the class balancing we've done, and it plays like a dream. Now you go into a game and it's all hats and trading and side grades that absolutely ruin any class balance, and it's just not fun. It hasn't been fun for several years. It's gone free to play. The optimization patches make the game run better or worse at complete random. I'm afraid, because of this comparison, I've actually realized that I'm afraid that maybe that's what's going to happen for Overwatch. I would absolutely not put it past Blizzard to try something in the later stages because of other issues I will soon raise. But it is worrying when these two very distinct games are compared to each other in this manner, because the mindset that accompanies the game it's being compared to might be along with it. That's possibly damaging. What I also don't like is that the game is often mislabeled as a MOBA. People like to sometimes say it's a MOBA or that has MOBA elements, and I do not see that. Like, you do not jungle, you do not have minions, you do not have God knows whatever the Dota and League crowd think it does, but because it's often called a MOBA and people sometimes do no research, you do have the incredibly toxic MOBA player base coming over and being quite unpleasant to play against. I know many people will not like hearing this, but it's a fact that there will be people who will rage at you and insult you and wish all sorts of terminal diseases on you, and it's not the kind of environment you want to play a casual quote-unquote fun shooter in, eh? Minor gripe, but quite serious, is I tend to play a lot of Hanzo because I like his ultimate, and I'm more of a sneaky mobility guy. He's got a hold space to X ability, which is to say, if you jump at a wall and you hold space, he's supposed to climb up the wall part way so you can possibly mount over some obstacles and stuff. That sometimes will just refuse to work. No reason, no valid reason. It's really bad. Like, it isn't even that when you start. So if you jump at a wall and you press space and you let go, it's not that it'll complete. You have to hold space for as long as you want to jump up until that ability has run its distance and you can't climb any higher. But sometimes it will just not work, rendering you completely ineffectual. Like, there's a point in the game where there's pits everywhere and you have to climb up a building to possibly ambush from higher up as the archer quote sniper, whatever. And I tried to jump at that building, which, mind you, is semi-floating. From the side, as the attacker, there's a pit you can fall into, and almost always fall into that pit, because the ability to climb up the wall just does not work. This is one of those things where you give this character a basic ability, then you damn well better make sure it works. Blizzard hasn't done that. And they've had all these betas, and the game has been out for nearly a month now. I find it incredibly hard to believe that there wasn't testing done, unless they're that dismissive of their game or their player base. Because this is literally one of those things that you should have super tested and seen. An actually quite vicious point for me that actually does get my blood boiling, semi-irrespective of the game, is that it comes in two versions. The PC basic version is $40 and gets you the game. The PC expanded version, the Origins edition, is $60. Now, you think that's a pre-order bonus edition, and it might be, except the game is out, so it's just a special edition, and you can still buy it for some weird reason. But there are some issues with this. First of all, before I explain why this is terrible, I'm going to explain that on console, I have a PS4, and I went on the PSN, and the only Overwatch game you can buy there is the Origins Edition. There is no basic version. You are forced to get the Origins Edition if you want Overwatch. So you're forced to pay $60 instead of $40. Right. Well, what do you get for $40 when you buy the basic game? At launch, you currently get 21 heroes, 12 maps with a training ground map extra, so, that's not in rotation, but you do technically get 13 maps. You get 3 game modes of Assault, Escort, Control modes, and you get a 4th hybrid where you assault a point and then escort it somewhere. I'm not sure I should consider that an actual game mode. They're trying to make it sound like it is, but honestly it's not. So, that's what the basic game gets you. If you choose to waste $20 to upgrade to the Origins Edition, you will not get, at half the price of the original game added on top. You do not get 10 extra heroes, 6 maps, and 1 or 2 game modes. No, what you get are literally worthless things. Like, I pre-ordered and paid for the special edition skins. A Tracer for the Heroes of the Storm game, also by Blizzard. Baby Winston for World of Warcraft, which I think pets are cosmetic. They might have been patched to do something. I'm not a World of Warcraft player, but I wouldn't be surprised. You get an Overwatch-themed card back, right, for Hearthstone, so literally worthless. Mercy's Wings for Diablo 3, which, unless I'm wrong, they're cosmetic and worthless. Like, if they provide stats, that's fine. I haven't been informed. And in-game portraits for StarCraft 2, which is literally worthless. Nothing in here represents $20 in value, but if you are on a console and you want to play Overwatch, you are forced to spend $20 more than you should necessarily be able to play the same game. And you know what the fun thing is, if you buy the Origins Edition on PS4 or wherever else you buy it, and you don't have the other games, then you're simply screwed. You're literally not getting value in 2 ways, because not only is all that not worth $20, but if you don't own the games that they are valid in, then you have to buy those games for the things to unlock, and it's terrible. Why would you do this? It's terrible. Now, as of June 14th, 2016, Overwatch has reached 10 million players. That's a huge number, but communication from the developers is sparse, updates are semi-infrequent, and often don't address glaring problems. For instance, the update that nerfed McCree, which was necessary, and Widowmaker, which was also necessary, did not come with the promised Diva buff, for instance. They said that they're not quite sure what to do with her, but they announced her buff at the same time they announced the other 2 getting nerfs, so it would have made sense that she got a little bit something. All in all, despite having this massive player base, the community is often ignored or treated basically like peasants who've paid their dues. We have your money, we don't care. I can't point to a specific example of neglect, but there's a general feeling in the player base that Blizzard isn't doing all that it can. You go to their forums, you're free to check it out, at any given point I'm sure you'll find something, because the forums are always full of unhappy people for one reason or another, and I'm not saying all of them are valid, because God knows this is the internet. But high on top of that is one of my favorite points is that the way Blizzard handles refunds is abysmal. The training mode, if you get the game, can put you up to level 3 or 4, and a few games afterwards will easily push you to level 5 or 6. Yet, Blizzard's unspoken refund policy seems to be under level X, which I believe to be 5 or 6, and less than 72 hours from purchase, or less than X hours played. Now, their forums are often full of angry customers denied refunds, and my favorite of these is a player who has made a post who said, "I have played the game for 108 minutes, and they refused me the refund on grounds that I have reached too high a level, when all I did was play the training mode through and 2 or 3 games afterwards." That, if I'm honest, Steam is horrible for refunds. Steam will try to nickel and dime you where it can as well, but even they have a 2-hour refund policy, which, while not necessarily enough in a lot of instances, such as with big JRPGs or whatever, it's decent enough that the Twitch shooters, that the horror games, that whatever, can be refunded within a fairly, generous time limit for their gameplay. 108 minutes in a shooter, not qualifying you for a refund is absolutely ludicrous. You're not, you go through the training that alone takes 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how much you want to try each hero, how slow you are. It doesn't take into account things like you leave the game on, but you have to answer the door, or you have to have a pee, or your mum just made food or whatever, because keep in mind, not everyone's going to be an adult, but they might want the refund, because whatever. I find this personally offensive, because this is another snub at the user base. This does not seem like a valid refund policy to me. It just sort of tries to tunnel you into this thing where you do little with the game and then you're not allowed to give it back. You're not allowed to get your money back. Now, I'm a cynical person. I'm not a I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that this is possibly indicative that they want to make sure you don't realize the game's got serious issues, because the window for quote-unquote valid refunds is so small that it cuts off any chance of you doing that reasonably, unless you know about it and you actively measure yourself. So, in regards to Blizzard just taking a crap on the player base and not communicating, a really good example is the entire first week of release from May 24th-ish. Is the first thing they said on May 31st, or 30th or 31st, was, a week of silence. There was no word on the broken matchmaking, the Tick 20 garbage, the other problems, the semi-rampant cheating at the time. No, the first thing the company did, a week after release when they came out, was to say, we're updating highlights, we're working on highlights. Well, that's terrific, because, what do highlights do for you? Nothing. Highlights are clips that show off your quote-unquote amazing game-changing skills when the game algorithm picks a thing you did and it saves a 10 or whatever second clip of it so you can show it off. Now, that's purely cosmetic and is not as critical a part of gameplay as balancing characters or fixing the core server issue that gets you killed to bullshit constantly, or any of the other issues. So that's cemented in my mind that Blizzard does not have the correct priorities in order. It's fine if they're working on the other stuff behind the scenes, but they never said that they are. In fact, and I'm going to go into this later, attitude from one of the lead design people was quite dismissive. My next point, however, and I'm reading off a script because I'm garbage and I need to do this. So, adding on to the fact that cheating was semi-rampant in the betas and in release, and it still is, it's horribly blatant. Like, there's a lot of cheating in Overwatch. There's a serious problem. A kill cam is featured usually to let the player know what they've done quote-unquote wrong, or to spectate the last few seconds of their attacker killing them, so if there's any hacks, then they can call it, with proof. The problem is, Blizzard themselves have come out and said that the kill cam should not be used for detecting cheaters because it is unreliable and does not give one-to-one true playback. That is to say, it might do odd twitches that look like aimbotting, and it's just not reliable, apparently. So, the feature designed for the very reason of weeding out cheaters is not suitable for weeding out cheaters. That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. Massive rant about cheating coming up. It's my next point. I have seen a lot of it, and I have seen a lot of types of it. The most famous example that even non-players might be familiar with is that during one of the betas, some guy named Timu or something, and some other guy named Shore4, who are pro MLG kids, they were caught cheating really badly. Someone recorded their kill cam or their perspective, and this is on the Mumbani. One of them is on the Mumbani map, and I think Lucio is killed. There's a Mercy behind them who can revive Lucio. Now, Lucio is being revived, except anyone who's played the game for more than an hour will know that people that are getting revived cannot be targeted for a few seconds, as they are effectively invulnerable. The guy's aim is shown locking onto the revived Lucio's head, and he's wrestling with it to get it away from there, because his aimbot, that's a valid player, that's back in the game, but control's taken away from them and they're invulnerable for a few seconds. Now, a player would know that, but an aimbot wouldn't. So these obvious signs, despite the fact, quote-unquote fact that you can't rely on the kill cams, is usable to weed out cheaters. And this, keep in mind, this is a professional player who has been caught cheating with evidence, who was playing for serious tournament money. Nothing has happened to him. There has been no reprimand on Blizzard's part towards this person. His account did not get suspended or banned. He is there, he's playing, he's probably cheating. And this disgusting preferential treatment is not sitting well with me at all. It means that if you're any kind of famous, despite having the proof we need, you are effectively above the terms and conditions because you've broken our service agreement not to cheat and ruin the game for others. But, you know, we can't do that because you're too famous or whatever. That nothing was done is one of the most disgusting things Blizzard has pulled so far. It is not good. Other cheats, you know, include non-Widowmaker wall hacks where a person will shoot at you before they cross the corner. And, you know, if Widowmaker's wall hack is up, the legitimate one, let's say the enemy's a McCree and he's looking at you coming through the wall. Like, you can see him perfectly targeting your head and shooting you the millisecond you come into view. If Widowmaker's ultimate is up, the legitimate wall hack, you will be shown on the kill cam as being an outline. Therefore, it's semi-plausible that the person saw you because they bloody saw you through the wall. Yeah, that's fine. But these people do not have that in a lot of the kill cams. They'll just know where you are. And my favourite excuse to this is, oh, I've got good headphones and I'm a sound whore. Well, that's fine for you, but none of those actually allow precise 3D positioning. I can pick out which character's which based on their footsteps too. I can hear that there's one of them, but you know, that leaves options open. Is he inside the building? Is he retreating? Is he coming towards me? Is he a floor up? Where is he? I cannot be certain of these things, and anyone who pretends like they are possibly isn't being too honest. Other forms of cheating, you know, there's the obvious aimbots, snap to heads. People will be quick to call this, and they're usually right. The problem is there are what I call soft aimbots that do not just snap to a head like that. The soft aimbots do a curve, like a player would when they twitch to a head. It'll be convincing, more convincing than an aimbot, not quite totally convincing. That means you still die to instant hacking, but it'll look more legit, so it's harder to spot, and calling this out as a suspicion will get you severely attacked by everyone because, oh, you're a scrub, you should just get better. You know, the usual thing people do. But besides these very basic and readily available hacks, there's some absolute stupid crap going on. I have seen a Genji on Ilios with the lighthouse. That Genji got killed by my Junkrat bombs precisely 7 times in the scope of 1 minute, never reviving with a mercy and never coming back from spawn. He just kept self-reviving as if there was a mercy nearby, but there was nobody to revive him. So what he did, I'm guessing, because I've got some knowledge into this, is go mercy, charge up the ultimate, somehow store that ultimate charge in memory with an external application, die and go Genji. And then he would freeze the ultimate in a state of always being available. Then he wouldn't have his ultimate, obviously, unless there was a different button map to it. I'm not that deep into it, but the fact is, there was a self-reviving Genji. You killed him, he'd wait 2 or 3 seconds, and then he'd revive and go to your back. So, absolutely stunning display of just stupidity. But the best one, there's actually a beneficial type of cheating, kind of. Mei's self-healing invincibility skill has a recharge time, except when it doesn't, because the cheaters cancelled it. So what ends up happening is she can just sit on the shift button to permanently render herself invincible on top of a control point, preventing the enemy team from capturing it. The only one I've encountered doing this was actually a good guy, in the sense that he did this only so we could team deathmatch infinitely, because there was because this effectively meant that there was an attacker on the point. It counted as overtime constantly, and since she sat there invincible, the other players were free to kill each other. But you see how serious this is. This could be. Excuse me. Another issue with this is that anti-cheat itself appears to be nothing but monitoring garbage. From what I understand, Blizzard's got a software called like Warden or Overseer or something, and all that does is if you molest the game variables, then it might pick that up and it might report that back to home, and they might push a button to possibly ban a few people. But I'm not actually sure that any of that's going on, because while they say there has been a ban wave, I have not seen any proof of this. There was a very small moderate decline at one point in cheating and then ramped back up. It's especially bad on the week. Go play on the weekends. You will encounter people doing the stupidest crap all the time. Very, very, very obvious things. It literally unplayable in the weekends. But I don't believe Blizzard did anything, because there's literally no proof. They just, we banned some people. That's it. Whereas the Chinese branch of Blizzard has actually named and shamed 1,500 plus people. There's a big fat wall of accounts caught cheating, a list of names that you can check that no longer have access to the game. Check their kill cams, if there's record of it, and compare. That's solid. That's hard work. That's proof of hard work. American Blizzard does not feel like it is putting in the slightest bit of effort, if I'm completely honest. A worrying sentiment is I've had several cheaters come to the official forums and post in other places where they say that they have cheated once and they've got their just ban for it, but then they rebought the game to play without cheating again, and in a day or two, without cheating, they were banned once again. Which, you might think that's fine. There's some sort of metric to keep track of re-registering, so if you buy the game again, you're not allowed to cheat again. There are many issues with this, particularly that someone who cheats once might not cheat again. Like, they might have learned their lesson, as most of these people I'm sure have, because who wants to buy a game for $40 to be banned again, right? If not 60, goddammit. And then some worrying stuff came up. Like, they've reinstalled their system, they've cleaned out registry entries, they've changed really deep-seated core hardware identifiers to bypass this, to play the game legit on a third account, and they still got banned. Now, I'm not exactly sure what metric then the game can use to monitor, who you are to ban you based on a previous quote-unquote conviction, but I'm trained in IT security, and this worries me to no end. It says to me that there is some sort of deep-seated monitoring going on that I do not agree with on a principle level. I'm all for getting cheaters out of the game, but this is active on everyone's computers, apparently. Obviously, and what else are they doing? What else are they not doing? This is Paranoia Street, and I don't want to go down that way, but I do not like finding out that I'm being monitored through someone else. And I am being monitored, let's face it. So. Okay, disgusting open mouth swig of some drink. Talking for 50 minutes will do that to you. What's my next point then? Yes. The chief issue with just anyone who buys the game and has a lick of common sense is that this full-priced game, at $40 to $60, features cosmetic loot boxes. It should be noted here that both Jim Sterling and Ben Croshaw, aka Yahtzee of Zero Punctuation, has come out against these things, and that's the sensible sentiment, because if you're going to sell a full game, you should not withhold content. Loot boxes are something awarded to you once per level when you reach that new level, and drop 4 random bits of so far purely cosmetic things. So these can be anything from sprays to voice lines for characters to poses to victory poses, or the more important skins. You have basic skins, which are just 1 or 2 colors swapped, complex skins, which are more colors swapped, complete swaps, which the entire outfit is color swapped, often in ridiculous ways, or there's effects added. Like, there's a skin where Junkrat appears way more burnt, there's a burnt texture on him. And the legendary skins, which are 1,000 credits to purchase, and I'll get into that, those are rare and change the character drastically. So Junkrat looks funky, looks how he looks, but you can get a Jester outfit where he looks like a modern neo-techno, whatever, Jester, words. Basically, it makes you look good, and that's all it does. But, and I have personal experience with this, the loot boxes seem to be completely fixed. If I opened a loot box, I would always get a white, blue, and white item in that order. White is basic, worthless, it's crap like sprays and voice lines and things you don't want. They have literally no value in the game as well. You get 5 credits for a duplicate and you need 1,000 credits for a legendary skin. So, by the way, anything you get a duplicate of is 20% of its value in credits. So, if you want a legendary skin, you need to get 5 legendary duplicates to get that skin. That's bad. But, you know, if you buy 50 boxes, which I think is the maximum, you're paying for the game again, literally, because it's around $40. And all you get for that is 50 boxes full of cosmetics. And while it should be said that I suspect the paid loot boxes are rigged to be more enticing by dropping better gear, it's still a ripoff, because the person who starts the game at level 1 and has not had the chance to acquire anything will likely see more unique items and less refunds, duplicates. Okay, with me so far? So imagine if you played until level 20 or 30 and you still for some reason like the game and then decide to buy 50 loot boxes. Most of what you're going to get is going to be either unique, which is rare, or duplicates, which is incredibly common, or mostly worthless, like things you haven't had before, skins for characters you never use, voice lines that are just worse or you don't want to use. Basically, buying loot boxes to support the developer, which, again, should not be in a full-priced game, no matter what anyone else says, is bad. Because if you've had 30 levels of loot boxes to open, and then you buy 50 more loot boxes, you're going to be shafted on the value. You've paid actual, serious, real-life money for useless cosmetic items, and that's up to you. But as a customer, you're being fucked over. Because you do not get the... You do not get the one-on-one value back. Say you have Zenyatta's Ifrit skin and you get it from a drop, from a paid loot box that you've paid for. You do not then get one-on-one value back, so you can buy the legendary skin that you would have gotten if you did not get a duplicate. You get 20% of the value back. And what this is further taking out the value of your money. It is disgusting and greedy, and I do not like it in the slightest. The mere inclusion of this in a full-priced game by a so far beloved developer who has taken great care to patch even their 10-plus-year-old Diablo 2 recently is just depressing. Because developers didn't need to do this 10 years ago. Developers didn't really need to do this 5 years ago. This is purely greed. Overwatch has sold, as I have said, they've reached 10 million players. Everyone has to have paid around $40 at least to do this. I don't believe that the game isn't recuperating its costs nicely without having to nickel and dime and rip off customers. I just don't believe it. And by the way, when I said I get white, blue, white drops in that order, I mean from left to right you get 4 drops and that's the order, and white is worthless and blue is the one tier up from that. It's basically... almost always something like the most basic ugly skin or something that the game thinks is more valuable than it is. Lots of duplicates there. Ignoring all this and moving on to another core issue is the matchmaking. Allegedly, there is no forced 50% win rate, but a lot of the player base has gone and made topics about this and posted their win-to-loss ratios. So there is no direct 50%. There's not a stat that says your win rate is 48.7%. But what people do is they tally up their wins versus their losses and then average them out to get a percentage. And it's almost always, with a small margin of error, very, very close to 50%. So, and this is visible in gameplay because even... And, someone came out and said, oh, this is rubbish, we don't do this, we match based on skill level. But that's a blatant bloody lie. I have exclusively played solo and joining into quick matches, which put you into a random game full of randoms to be random with. So there's little coordination, everyone's just there to have fun, except when they're not. Because guess what? I've had times where I have had a team that was higher level than me, indicating more playtime, but did not know so many basics that it was mind-numbing seeing them walk straight file into an ambush and die. The other team appeared incredibly competent as a result, but as soon as the teams shuffled and I got some of those more competent players, the previously stupid people started doing really well. And I found that out because... my team at the time had lost, and most of them rage quit. I didn't notice this at the time, but with the team shuffling and the new people coming in, the new people got shuffled over onto the already winning team to do even better, and the people on my team ended up being the garbage team players from the other team. Balancing does not exist. I have had personal experiences where I have went 2 hours jumping from game to game after defeat, where I would always get defeated. And it's not, oh, it was close, but we lost. It was always, we're getting the shit stomped out of us. They're anticipating everything. Actually, a lot of gameplay is very suspicious, but in the end, whether or not it's cheating, we lost. We lost hard. To the tune of no percent capture on our team on the control point sometimes. And this went on for 12 games total, about 8 or 10 minutes a second, depending on overtimes. What? 8 minutes per game, 8 to 10 minutes per game, gosh. Getting worked up now. So, many people will also tell you that they have this loss chain, where they're forced into a loss just to inflate your, to correct your, 50% win rate. I've experienced this on a more personal and disgusting level, where allegedly if you join a losing game, and you lose quote-unquote quickly enough, it doesn't count as a loss and you get bonus EXP for filling in for someone who left. That might be blatant bullshit, because I have had in the past week or two before I gave up several games where I, join game found. This is the map you're on, I'm loading. And I'd load into a defeat screen, to the tune that I could not pick a character, and on the bottom, my team, I would always have a question mark icon indicating that I had not picked a character. That does count as a loss. It awards you precisely no EXP for doing so, and it does go, it goes on your record. So the game punishes you for doing well by either assigning you complete idiots, or mashing you up against people who are doing well or coordinating in such a way that you really do not have the chance to win. Whatever you do is you. If you support someone who is a complete useless bag of garbage, they run into the point and die, even as your M1 healing them as mercy, because they don't know tactics, they don't wait for the team, whatever. You're going to get killed, you're not going to have a fun time, the enemy team's going to remain strong, they're going to feed ultimates off your suffering, and the matchmaking is I'm absolutely sure the matchmaking is one or another type of fixed, and general player consensus seems to be the same, because once you lose long and hard, you will eventually start stomping people to death. Like, you'll be the one stepping on the other people who've accidentally won too much. It's incredibly rare to see a win rate even close to 70%. 60% you're doing amazingly good. I'm near 60% because I quit every game I feel like I'm going to lose. I'm just not having fun if I'm getting stomped. So I leave, so that doesn't register, and I'll occasionally win one by joining a winning game and nothing else. It's not fun. It's artificial gating of your experience, and anyone with a brain in their head should be upset that this is going on. Go to the forum. You don't have to believe me. Go to the forums and check out the many 50% forced matchmaker threads. There's so much evidence there. Hundreds of people posting their stats. It's ludicrous. Now, interestingly enough, the game was supposed to launch with the competitive mode. That's a problem because it didn't launch with it. And it was rumored to be delayed for a while. I don't know if they went back on saying that it's delayed to buy themselves some time and or face. But the fact is, you only have quick play to play with. The other options are weekly brawl, which is a gimmick that lasts a week, and it's the stupid fun game mode, except right now, where everyone's half health, soldier 76, killing each other. It's terrible, it's horrible, boring. And the other one is custom game, where you custom game, you set up whatever you want. Nobody uses that. Almost quite literally nobody uses that. Quick play is what you go to when you want to be in the major server queue and play with people. Competitive mode would have been for the tryhards to min-max, to pick the correct team compositions, to coordinate on Skype, and do all that stuff. Because it's not in the game, you now have people, and I absolutely loathe this word, especially in regard to myself, but you have people, casuals like me, who just want to go into a game and have fun. I'm aware of my objectives, I know what each class does, I know how to help my team, I know to stick on that point, push that cart, whatever. But I'm matched up against complete idiots who just want to play Reaper because they're 12 and they like the dark, brooding emo guy with the mask and the shotguns and the gravelly voice. And I'm also matched up with these exact same min-maxing tryhards that are hopped up on energy drinks, pick nothing but Widowmaker, and shoot you the second you come into view. Even if you're behind them, because they're either that good or they're aimbotting. I wouldn't be surprised at either. So this creates an unhealthy intermingling of players, And resentment over this is high because, you know, a tryhard is going to want to do the best for their team, but if the other 5 players are all going around going and dying to the enemy team and forcing a loss, then everyone's time is wasted and they're not going to have fun. Similarly, the casuals are not going to like turning a corner and just immediately dying to someone who was just camped on that spot and having such a tryhard boner that they pass out from the blood loss. It's ridiculous. There's no necessary player segregation. Casuals want to play with casuals and competitors want to play with the competitives. I'll stop dwelling on this point in a second, but a good example of this is I play Pokemon for the story. I want to go through and beat every gym leader and see what happens. And maybe, you know, that's not amazing for you, but that's what I do. Is I like the story, I like what happens, I like seeing a new Pokemon. And then 30, 40, 50 hours into it and post-game, I'm done. I put it down. I might come back to it, I might not. I'm not going to be one of those people I consider to be quite annoying that go breed the perfect Pokemon, raise it for 10 hours, and then breed 2 more perfect Pokemon off that, and then do that for 10 hours, and breed the ultimate 1 Pokemon for their 6 Pokemon team, put the correct, absolute epic only moves to put on that, and but the stat point is a single point lower, I have to abort and retry again. No, I cannot imagine a world where that would be fun to me, and they're free to do it, there are no restrictions. But I do not want to play with them. Like, if I ever did PvP, and thank God I don't, in Pokemon, I wouldn't want to play with these people, because they take it way more seriously than I do, and it's not healthy for either of us, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't want to have someone talking down to me because I didn't spend 70 hours constructing the perfect team. I don't want someone talking down to me because I'm just trying to have fun, and fun for me includes doing the best I can, instead of, oh, now I'm not going to have a social life because I'll play this for every day of every year. Another major point of contention, and this is just for me personally, is that dear old Jeff Kaplan came out in an interview for Eurogamer about the TIC-20 servers on June 7th, 2016. Now, Jeff stated that there is a high bandwidth option in the custom game feature inside Overwatch. High bandwidth means 60 tick instead of 20, so you do get more server refreshes per second, but 60 is still considered to be fairly low end. I'll explain why in a second. Now, the custom game feature that he says this is available in didn't work for almost anyone. Threads were full of this does not work, crashes, freezes, whatever. But, you know, he ignored that. He wasn't on top of the ball, because I think there's very little effort or communication either way, you know, take your pick. But his entire interview has consisted of very sort of looks down on you words and terminology. So, some point in you can check this interview out. Jeff Kaplan, Eurogamer interview, tick rate, whatever. You're going to find it in Google. So he uses words and terms such as latches onto, educate, general misunderstanding. These terms speak to me with a sort of smug confidence that says, oh, you just don't know what you're talking about and let us correct you. Now, fair enough, that might be the case, because a person highly trained in coding might know better than the player who just joined. But this was not a coder, this was just a rando, as I understand. Jeffy's just in charge of relations. I don't know if he actually does anything, because there's no transparency. I literally don't know what he does. But he's on record stating that this is a direct quote, we wanted to explore what the game would be like at 60 Hz, so that way we could explore if it's possible for us to try other versions of the game with this 60... What? With this update rate. Sorry, I skipped a line. So yeah, that's end of quote. This is complete bollocks as far as I'm concerned, and the reason for this is Counter-Strike 106 has used a server tick rate of 100 many years before Overwatch was even a dream in someone's eye. So 60 is often considered to be an absolute minimum for this kind of competitive game. And I will say right now that a server with a high tick rate is not as necessary for a strategy game like StarCraft, where your choices aren't quite that on the dot second, as safe snapping to someone's head and getting a headshot. It's less important for the server to be on top of its game than for an allegedly competitive shooter. You know what I mean? So, what I also don't like is that he said, oh, we're looking at what other versions of the game we could do. Now ask yourself, what other versions of the game could you possibly do by screwing with the server update rate? What is that gonna get you? Having it higher is universally better, except for the company doing it, because it costs more money. They simply thought they could get away with this. They would have these shitty servers from their time. You know, they either did this to save money, in which case they're disgusting, or they did this because 20-tick servers worked for StarCraft and things like that that didn't need it. This is, you know, pick your choice between neglect, cluelessness, or stupidity, or greed. I'm pretty sure it's greed with the loot boxes and the other hinting signs I've seen in the game. Further, he has been quoted as saying that it would be irresponsible, his words, to add this to the game, that this would need testing and that it would not work for approximately 20% of users. So, hang on, a basic feature like having the server update correctly would suddenly make the game not work for 20% of its users. This sounds like he's buying time, if I'm completely honest, because it's not one of those things that would drastically change the game. In the sense that it wouldn't ratchet up your minimum requirements that hard. Let's face it. But this quote shows that they did not plan to add anything but 20-tick servers. This cements it. The fact that, because if you did plan to have servers, if you thought that this might not be good, you would have run fucking tests on it. If you actually gave a damn about your player base, you would have investigated this. Even if you didn't implement it, you could have looked into this. Your playtesters could have seen the glaring issues and reported back to you. So you've either ignored them or not had them in the first place. And none of those options are good, Blizzard. Let me remind you that Counter-Strike 106, which launched on July 11th in 2003, had 100 tick rate servers, which is now considered competitive basic, is pretty bad. Because that means 13 years ago, someone was doing, on far less of a budget than what you've had, way better than you are now. I'd be freaking embarrassed, Blizzard. The problem is, next point, is community toxicity. Taking to the forums, you'll often be the anti-darling. You might be saying the correct things, but you will get the ire and hatred and downvotes of the community because of their personal, shall we say, prejudices. I can start a topic saying McCree needs a nerf because before he got his nerf, I got torn to shreds. But some people verbally agreed with me, and it was... yeah, I was in the majority, but the McCree players who really didn't like me saying that the precious baby needs to be adjusted were ganging up on me. And this isn't an isolated incident. This isn't just that. This isn't just me. Anything can get you torn apart on those forums, or even in-game. How dare you play this class, you fucking noob. Go change. You aren't changing. We need one of that class. You're useless. Go pick that. You know, some of that is valid if you have 3 Hanzos on attack. You're probably not going to win. But the community, on PC at least, is incredibly vile for what I've seen. I have encountered everything, wishing death threats on me, threatening to come and kill me, which was lovely. I got a good chuckle out of that. There are more sinister things the community can do. I have seen a match where 5 people had the exact same name, and it made reporting the correct one for cheating or abuse really, really hard. And they were obviously doing this consciously. They were called the same thing, so you didn't know which one to report. They didn't need to coordinate. They just called each other by name. Like, you know, Jeff. And then Mercy would do that. Jeff, go to the left. And Mercy would go to the left. They were fine. But anyone trying to reprimand, get these people reported having a fun time of it. Worse yet, someone can use this to get you in trouble. That same game later devolved into naming themselves frickin' mid-game from one loading to another after someone completely different. This is because everyone currently, if they haven't used it, has one free account change thing in their Battle.net thing. So I could go from being called ChillNaga to Hothead72 and it would be fine. People have been using this to gang up on people, to force reports of a person on someone, to get suspicion away from themselves. And it's quite a disgusting practice, if I'm honest. There have also been instances where a pre-made group of 456 have been beaten by randoms, and they mass-reported people. That group of 456 mass-reported people for whatever, It's worth noting that if you're reported for harassment, a very, widely applicable term, if you exceed a certain threshold of reports, nobody's going to check them. You're automatically going to be silenced for doubling amount each time. So 1 day, 2 day, 4 days, 8 days, you're not going to be able to communicate via voice or text. You're being punished for sore people grouping up and reporting you for no reason. This can include not noticing someone behind you, as, if you're Mercy, you don't notice someone's bleeding behind you, but say being safe, and you healing the tank in the middle of whatever, that player rages out and reports you. There's no indication that it's done, but there's a running tally that keeps going up until, whoops, you can no longer speak. Sorry. It's just funny because this sort of try-hard attitude even the casuals have is just a little bit odd with the fact that the game is perceived to be incredibly casual. And I understand why. It's very arcade, it's very quick. Skill ceilings are actually very low for basically everyone. Because when you eventually do enough damage, one thing or another, you farm up an ultimate, and that usually is an I win button for a situation. So again, players will be familiar with this. If I'm Hanzo, if I go as an attacker to Temple of Anubis B, I'll go to the left, I'll go through the little tunnels, I'll line up the entire sort of in a line, the entire sort of way most people come out of spawn, shoot my ultimate off, and that's guaranteed 3 to 6 people dead. That clears the point, we can win. I didn't really have any effort in there. I flanked, but I didn't sort of flank cleverly or headshot that guy and take him out of the game. I'm so pro, I didn't bypass his shit. No, I just pressed the button and it's done. It's good. So, there's a bit of that, and I don't know if that's a healthy thing. Being too accessible, well, let me put it this way. Steam was a respected gaming service that delivered you the games you wanted and had the good discounts. And then Greenlight came along and everyone is now laughing at it because it's quite accessible. You have $100, you have a garbage game you want to put up, you can do it. To this day, I have seen people trying to resell a Unity asset pack called Unit Z as their own game, literally 6 or 7 times that I'm aware of, probably way more. And someone recently has tried to put a World of Warcraft private server onto Greenlight. They have spent, I think, $100 to put it up on Greenlight for users to vote on. It's mind-blowing. I think that sort of thing might, if it's perceived as a super casual game, it will attract that super casual crowd. From the customer's perspective, they're losing value because they're not going to get the refund because we've established Blizzard is shit with that. And they're also possibly not going to have fun because the game isn't quite what they were expecting. And one big reason behind that is the marketing was absolutely gigantic. So it tries to sell itself like a good prostitute, but it doesn't really ever manage. Might have to edit that. I don't know. A bit too much, possibly. If you can get past all the other issues and you're still playing, then you'll find that some maps are just not balanced in anyone's favor, except possibly the other team. Examples of this card come to mind. Map areas, entire maps, or possibly just capture points that make almost prohibitively hard or impossible an attack or defense. Usually the attackers get the short end of the shift stick, though. Let's take Hanamura Point B. Again, players will know this is. You have 3 modes of entry. You can go up the right, bomb from their little thing that you can go up to immediately out of spawn, go down the middle and get killed by all the turrets, go down the left, which requires either a skill jump or falling down and then going to the left, which still gets you shot. And all of these are easily covered by snipers and turrets of one or another description. It's incredibly easy to defend this point unless you stack ultimates, and they don't happen to have ultimates to counter yours. Attackers almost never win this map unless they're super NLG pro kids with iron balls, yeah, and or gloating, obviously. Volskaya Industries Point B is a slightly less egregious example because it still has the 3 ways you can go. You can go in with a floating platform on the left, nobody really looks there. You can go in the middle, which everyone spams. You can go on the right, which they check often. But there's a hidden side path on the right that some mobile classes like Genji and Tracer can, get past a big gap to harass the enemy, take the attention off the main team. You're not really given a lot of options as an attacker because the defenders have way more options. Just placing a turret on the moving little platforms you can ride in on ensures that it'll be hard to counterattack an instant lock-on turret that does huge amounts of damage. And it is instant lock-on, so that's another issue, but that's class balancing for you. I don't want to get into class balancing too much. Temple of Anubis B is possibly the worst example of this. It's the most often bemoaned map with Hanamura B, because Temple of Anubis B as an attacker is a nightmare. The defenders spawn literally behind the capture point. It is a 5 to 7 second walk to get to it. And there's 5-ish seconds of you being dead. You have to watch nothing happening. Sure, but you're there. You know, so if there's a person on the point, it prevents capture. And the one person can dance around for 5 seconds and the entire team's back. And it's a situation that, hey, bitch, we're back. It's not balanced, is what I'm saying. It's really not balanced. Now, the game itself is tremendous fun for the first few hours. 2, 4, 6, whatever your pleasure is. But then the omissions, the problems, the glaring issues come into view. So the refund policy, as I've noted, by then will not be in effect. You will not be able to get a refund in all likelihood. And I should mention here as an aside that it is illegal for Blizzard to do this. If a customer deems that the product was not up to their satisfaction, most civilized countries will ensure some sort of graceful period where they can return that product, digital or not, for a refund. This might be 2 days, this might be 7 days, 14, 30, but the fact is that most countries' law is there to back you up if you do want a refund, and Blizzard has absolutely no right to just say, oh, well, yeah, you know. No, you can't, because you played 108 minutes, didn't you? But getting back to my point, so you'll after a few hours of gameplay where you experience the classes and the problems don't show up as sharply, you'll see some nice interplay, you'll get to learn the maps, the abilities, and oh, this is kind of cool. But then, you know, you'll start being forced into lost games against rampant cheaters, and you'll just turn incredibly sour and jaded like I have. You will not appreciate anything with the game. Because it's a chore, it's sort of the only thing you do, leveling is only for loot boxes, and I should mention that if you leave a lot like I do, there's a lever penalty, so you get loot boxes slower, which obviously does nothing but make the already padded loot boxes come slower, and since it's cosmetics, nobody really cares, except the people who spend money. Difficult, complex issue, but I don't think there should be a lever penalty in quick play either. I don't know, I feel like it's disingenuous. You have all this extra material, the animations, the massive marketing of this bright, colourful, wonderful, fun game. Then you actually play the game, you play long enough to realise it's not that good, and you want a refund, and you can't have it. And you're forced trying to play this game that might be broken or unfun or you don't like to justify the money that ran away from you. I got to level 50 and I hated it from level 20. I have put in so many hours playing this game that I did not enjoy just to feel like the person who gifted it to me did not waste his money. You know, it's not good. It has left me incredibly bitter for the game. I have little to no hope that it'll turn around, and I'm actually thinking it'll get worse. More on that soon. A player who will want to jump into the only sensible mode at this time, quick play mode, will often, you know, you yourself alone, not with a brother, not with a team, not with whatever, you alone want to play in quick play, you will be regularly matched against groups of 2 to 6 people who are communicating, they know what they're doing, they're higher level, they've been playing longer, and they'll just stomp you. They'll pump stomp you, your entire team. You cannot do anything because these people are either organized or not as clueless as the rest of the schmucks on your team. I don't think a player playing alone should be ever just matched with people as an organized team. If I wanted to pub stomp, if I wanted to do like super well, I would get my own team, but I don't want to. I don't want to harass people in different time zones with different things to do in their different lives and say, hey mate, Kate, come play an hour of this thing with me so I can beat some noobs. No, I want to play on my own in this 20-minute sphere of time I've got before I have to do something, and not worry about having myself come down on by a group that I can't do anything against. Come on. Now, all of these issues, the server problems, the cheating, the non-responsiveness, the lack of coherent class balancing, everything, It hasn't been a month since release. As I'm recording this, it is 2:37 on 2:38. It just switched. Fuck you. It's 2:38 p.m. on June the 17th of 2016. So the game has been out 3 weeks, maybe, not quite a month. And I've noticed that matchmaking no longer takes literally 2 to 7 seconds to put me in a game. It takes 20 to 120. That means that there are not as many games for me to be put into because people have abandoned this game. En masse and in droves, they're fleeing. The decrease in games means that the matchmaker takes longer to put you in a game. And when it does put you in a game, it's even more imbalanced because if there was a pretense for 10 seconds that it's skill-based matchmaking, and it honestly is not, then, it can't put you in a game. So it waits, and it waits, and it waits, and someone left this game, so it'll put you into that one. And often I leave a game and be put back in the exact same game 10 seconds later. So the matchmaker is either not working, or this is a sign that people are just leaving this game in huge swarms. And that makes me happy, because it feels like the just punishment Blizzard needs to realize that we're not fucking around, that this is serious, they need to issue fixes, that they need to get off their ass, and that they actually need to take this seriously. Because I don't think they are currently. So that was my massive bad points thing, and I'd like to move on to more, just anecdotes, things I used to enjoy before I turned super jaded, because the game does have fun elements and fun moments. I, for one, always chuckle when I see a Pharah trying to use her ultimate that isn't on our team, because her entire line is "Justice reigns from above." Yeah, it's kind of cool. It fits with her character, and it tells you that it's launched. It's fine, except most people jump up into the air and spray the ground with rockets, as you're semi-meant to. It's not the only option, but it's the best option. If you correctly position yourself, you bombard an enemy team, but as soon as it begins, someone will turn around and shoot her in the head, because she's completely stationary doing this. So instead of going "Justice reigns from above," the most common thing you'll hear in the game with a Pharah in it is "Justice." It's brilliant. It's honestly one of the most funny things in the game. That poor Pharah can't finish her ultimate. The other thing I like doing is using physics and environmental-based deaths. My all-time favorite has to be the fat, quote-unquote, slow Roadhog who doesn't really have any displacing abilities, except his hook. Now, the well in Ilios is fairly big, and if you stand on one side from where the attackers are coming, you can grab someone, hook them towards you, and the game will deposit them on top of that large instant kill pit, and they just die. That literally, you press a button and someone dies. Possibly boosted, at full health, possibly as invincible as they can be with whatever skills they may have, except Mei, because you can't hook her when she's icing. And I don't know, I find that sadistic and fun, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like a dick when I do it, but it's quite fun. I also like Genji's reflectability on Bastion's turret form in general. Just that he's the highest DPS character in the game. Bastion in turret form shreds anything. Nerf Bastion, please. Obligatory. But Genji's got this 1 or 2 second reflect where any projectile weapon shot at him is reflected in the direction he's looking. And it does the exact same damage. So as far as I know, there's no fall off. Now McCree's ultimate is painting targets that are then shot with a single lethal bullet for an instant kill if you painted them long enough. I love being Genji, hearing "it's high noon" and going in front of a McCree and daring him to shoot. It's highly amusing to me to block all of his targets, just go up in his face like, "Hey, I brought you mochaccino," and then just kill himself, make him kill himself. It's so good. Genji in general is fun to play due to his speed and double jumping and confusion. He's a master of confusion foe with his movement. I do think his ultimate's kind of useless. He's a bit faster and he does, I don't know, more damage with his slow swinging melee, but it's not. He doesn't get any resistances or nothing, so I don't know. As I've pointed to this in my bad points side, but I love being Hanzo on Anubis Point B as an attacker and just sweeping an entire team off the defense with my one ultimate. It's so brilliant when my effort alone just gets the other team killed, and my team just casually wanders on and sets up base, and we basically win. It's rare, it's sadistic, it's satisfying, and it could be worse. What else do I enjoy about Overwatch? The loading times, I don't have an SSD because I'm poor as hell, but the loading times, despite that, on Windows 10, which is the devil himself, is very nice. It never loads for more than 20 seconds, and that's if I've got much in the background, there's some memory issues. Usually it's 10 seconds to load into a game, and I think that's pretty fair. I like when it's got a nice flow to it like that. Oh, here's the game. I want to go into quick play. That'll take, whatever half a minute, 2 minutes it'll take because the matchmaker's struggling to find the game. But when it does, and it works correctly, the loading itself is quite nice. And I like that. I don't want to wait for no goddamn reason while I'm using my already limited time to enjoy myself, or try to. To take this little rant session as a whole, some things need to be said. This is Blizzard's first new IP in 17 years. They have literally not done anything else except expanded their already existing games in various directions. And it's also their first FPS. So they probably have literally no experience in FPS creation. You can possibly see this with the slapshot balancing, the obvious issues with the maps and choke points, and the other stuff. It still doesn't excuse them going for TIG-20 servers out of sheer ignorance, because that's what consultants are for. And this is one of the basic things you should have been told if you hired a consultant, that FPS games need good player feedback. But I'm aware of this, that it's their first FPS. I'm trying not to be too harsh on things like the class balance, which is why I refuse to go into it, except with the example of Symmetra being slightly weak. Because, I'm not a game developer. I have not been trained to know what is good balance. I'm not aware of the player feedback or its quantities. I know what my community says, and I can make a reaction or an opinion based on that, but that doesn't mean I'm right. However, I have this really, really dark suspicion that Overwatch is going to go the TF2 route, and eventually they'll patch in more skins that you can either buy with money directly, will become super rare to incentivize loot box purchases, or they'll just downright give bonus attributes to the characters that wear them, like TF2's side-grade weapons. So these can change gameplay, like they can give Pharah extra 50 health, they can make her abilities recharge quicker, maybe McCree's skin adds a 7th bullet chamber to his 6th chamber gun, or God knows what. I'm moderately convinced that this is probably going to happen, because the game launched strong, but the lack of effort and the obvious money grubbing with the loot boxes in, once again, a full-priced game, and this is never acceptable. Never. It's making me think that Blizzard is shooting its wad and hoping nobody notices. That it's like the player at the poker table who bluffs his way to victory, except the bluff doesn't work. So they spent their load, and now they're just trying to quickly and discreetly cash in the chips and move on. I was personally not fond of the dismissive Jeff Kaplan interview with Eurogamer on the 7th about use the custom game thing, like him saying that, use this feature nobody uses, and nobody can use anyway because it doesn't work. He even said, 0.08% of all games take place there. Like, yeah, do you know what a low number that is, you idiot? Nobody plays that, because they don't have a freaking friends group to play with. People go there to film their little Overwatch Mythbusters videos and set up specific scenarios. Yeah, that's fine for that. Not for serious play, you idiot. So, been a big, long 90-minute rant. In closing, I think what I'd like to say is I absolutely hate this game. It is the most unbalanced, sometimes tremendously unfun thing I've encountered in a long, long time. But I see the raw genius and the potential hiding behind it. The game itself is basically utter garbage, but the lore, the world, and the characters are brilliant. They are so vivid and colourful and enjoyable, and I want to see more of them. I want to see more animations like the Dragon's short featuring Hanzo and Genji. It had all the attention to detail, it had all the care put into it. The emotions expressed in the characters' models as... the most striking thing for me was when Tracer in her short corners Widowmaker, has her pinned to the ground after something, I'm not spoiling, happens. And she's horrified. She's asking why. Why would you do this? So Widowmaker just lets out a cold chuckle, and you can see on her reaction that she's trying to figure out why someone would do what she did. And then hearing the chuckle, her eyes go wide, and I can't believe this. What? It's a subtle thing, and you might not appreciate it as much as I do, but I really like that life behind these obviously fake fictional characters. You're creating something out of nothing, and that is impressive to me. I love that. I wish, if nothing else, Blizzard made movies and shorts, or even a series of make an Overwatch cartoon. No balancing issues there, no servers to upkeep and get yelled at for being crap. Yeah. I think if I go back to the game later with more content and patches, the problems possibly smoothed out, I still won't like it. It will never live up to the potential that is displayed in the shorts. It will never be as good as the shorts and animations themselves, the expanded lore, the comics. None of that is as bad as the game is, or possibly ever. I don't think the game can be good, ever. They can fix things, but by then everyone's played it and experienced it and moved on. This first period was crucial, and Blizzard, for all accounts, has fucked it. It's gone. TikTok, time's ticking away. People have played it, people have experienced it, and they're just going to move on to the next thing. Titanfall 2 is coming out. God knows what else is coming out. So, I think Blizzard is suffering from what I call Squaresoft circa 2001 syndrome. They just want to make movies and FMVs. They don't want to make games, they want to make big, impressive movies with gorgeous visuals and freaking edge technology, the cutting edge technology, that's the word, sorry. So, do that. Do what you want to do, instead of shitting on your player base and neglecting them and nickel and diming them and scamming them and marginalizing them and ignoring their issues and downplaying the problems that you have. It will not paint you in a good light, Blizzard. So, I think for my final sentence, I just like to say I'd be happy if the game swung around, because other people might still enjoy it, but I honestly don't think there's a good future in front of it. It's been nearly a month. Players are pissed off, players are ignored, or players have left. They're abandoning the game in mass, and honestly, I don't think it's gonna come out as good as it was before. But that's for time to tell, isn't it? So thank you for listening to my ramblings for a better part of an hour and a half. This has been ChillNaga. If I ever feel strongly about something again, you can bet your sweet ass I'll post it here on SoundCloud. Thank you for your time. Please give me feedback on Twitter if you've enjoyed this. Cheers.